There will not be any video today because I'm going to be over behind my podium. So we'll just have to listen to questions that I ask for a game that we're playing to review the different things that we've covered in the last few weeks. So we've already talked about Herod the Great. That wasn't on the video because I forgot to turn it on. So we have so far only covered a question concerning Herod the Great and the murdering of his sons. All right, next question. Everyone please speak up when you're giving your answer. Who were the men who traveled a great distance to see the newborn king in Israel? Blue.
Magi.
Right. Who was the Roman emperor at the time that Jesus was born? Yellow.
Herod the Great.
That is incorrect. Emperor, not king. Who was the Roman emperor? Blue.
Herod Antipas.
Herod Antipas was not an emperor either. You guys are naming kings in Israel, not Roman emperors. Purple.
Julius Caesar.
Julius Caesar was long dead, about 30 years before. Can only answer once. All right, no one gets this. What's the answer, Zach?
Pompey.
What?
Pompey.
No, Pompey was not ever a Roman emperor. Who was the one that issued a decree for all the world to be taxed?
Caesar Augustus.
Caesar Augustus was the Roman emperor. This child who was born was predicted by Old Testament prophets, and what was his title? Blue.
King of the Jews.
Yes. What was, I'll give you another shot at it because that is correct, but what was his Old Testament title, his Old Testament name? The coming one was called what?
Messiah.
Messiah, yes. Oops. Oh, well, we'll use this as a toss-up to see who it lands on.
Eeny, meeny, miny, mo.
In the Jewish captivity in Babylon, they established a system to make sure that the law was taught by meeting together on the Sabbath day. This meeting together was held where? The building in which they met was held where? Purple. Take off 10. Oh, purple. Do you know any better now? All right, we'll just let anybody buzz in. Blue.
Synagogue.
Synagogue. 10 points. Because of the conquests of Alexander the Great, a common language was established throughout the known world, which facilitated the spread of the gospel. What language? Yellow.
General Roman. Or, General.
I think you said Roman. That is incorrect. You have been sitting here for the last couple months, haven't you? Have you not? The answer is Greek. All right, next question. Transportation throughout the Roman world was facilitated through what system of transportation? What enabled people to get around? Yellow.
Roads.
Roads, Roman roads. Next, traveling was made safer because of what that was in existence at the time of Jesus' birth? What made things travel safer? Time's up. Pax Romana, the peace of Rome. The final preparation for the coming of Messiah was through an announcer. Who was that? Who was the announcer of the coming of Messiah? The one who announced his coming. He said, get ready for him. He's coming. Those who repented, he baptized in the Jordan River. Blue.
John the Baptist.
Yes. At the time of Jesus, there were several religious, political groups among the Jewish people. Which one accepted miracles, the existence of angels, and future resurrection? Purple.
Pharisees.
That is correct. Next, which group were a branch off of the Pharisees that fell so strongly they went off to live in the desert away from the rest of Jewish society? Blue.
Zealots.
That is incorrect. Went off to live in the desert away from the rest of Jewish society. That would be the Essenes. Another group that branched off the Pharisees were determined to drive the Romans out of Israel. Blue.
Zealots.
The Zealots. What group controlled the temple but did not believe in miracles, angels? Blue.
Sadducees.
Correct. Or the resurrection. Another group advocated cooperation with the Roman government. Blue.
Herodians.
Correct. The Pharisees and the Sadducees banded together in order to arrest Jesus and bring him to trial before the official ruling body of the Jewish people. What was that body called? Blue.
I didn't need that. Pontius Pilate.
Okay, well,
Time's up.
he was brought before Pontius Pilate, so I'll let you have that. I think, did we talk about the Sanhedrin? I think we did. Sanhedrin is the first group that he met of, and then eventually Pontius Pilate. All right, next. During whose reign, what emperor was reigning over Rome when the crucifixion of Jesus took place? Who was the Roman emperor when Jesus was crucified? Time's up. It was Tiberius. Following the resurrection of Jesus, the Christian church is said to have been established on what day? What day was the first day of the church? Blue?
Sunday.
No. The day of Pentecost, when the Holy Spirit came down and dwelt all of the disciples there. What is the foundation of the church? Purple.
Jesus.
Right. The person who probably did the most to expand the gospel to the Gentiles was what, in fact, is considered the apostle to the Gentiles, was who? Blue.
Paul.
Right. Christianity was considered just to be another Jewish sect until what event, after which they were considered a separate group? What event separated Christians from other Jewish groups in the minds of everyone around? Blue?
The destruction of the temple.
Correct. Who destroyed the temple in Jerusalem and the city of Jerusalem? Who destroyed the temple? That would be Titus. Who was his father, who became emperor of the Roman Empire after having begun the siege of Jerusalem? Yellow.
Tiberius?
No. Tiberius had been emperor 30 years before when Jesus was, or 40 years before when Jesus was crucified. But there have been several emperors since him, including Nero and a couple of others short-lived before this guy, who was putting down the revolt in Israel and came back to Rome when Nero committed suicide. Several other emperors tried to take over, but didn't last very long. Same was Vespasian. Who was the most famous torturer of Christians? What Roman emperor? Who even used them as human torches in his garden parties, and also had the nickname the Beast. Prior to the destruction of Jerusalem. That was Nero. It's believed that Nero was responsible for the martyrdom of what two apostles? Peter and Paul. Which of the designated types of men that we find in the world made ready for the coming Messiah, which of them was a particularly religious man? Which type of man was a religious man of the three ethnic types or social types? Time's up. It was the Jew, which was considered a solitary man. Didn't mingle with other groups. Purple.
Greek?
No. -10. That was also the Jew. You remember how God separated the Jews from everybody else? They did not want to become Greek or Roman. They wanted to stay by themselves. They were solitary. They weren't mixers. Which of them would be called a practical man? Which was the most practical of them all? Yellow.
Greek?
That is incorrect. -10. We've got 2 left. Anybody want to try? Only got one logically that's left. The answer is the Roman was practical. Remember, they took everything from everybody else and was very practical. They're the ones that built the aqueducts, the roads, all those things. Very practical. Who was the imitator man? Which kind of person was the imitator? Time's up. I just told you. The Romans imitated everybody. And the very next question is, who's the imitators? And you sit there and don't have an idea in your head. Which was the intellectual man? Blue.
Greek.
That is correct. Which was the simple man? Yellow.
Jew.
Correct. Which was conceited or humanistic? Saw that humans were to be valued above all else, elevated human reason. Purple.
Green.
Correct. All right, moving away from those three groups, what pagan philosophy believed that salvation comes by knowledge? Infiltrated the church as well. The idea that salvation comes by knowledge. Green.
Gnosticism.
Correct. Wow, we're on a roll. Got 4 in a row. What pagan philosophy believed that everything is controlled by the fates, and so emotion is useless? Purple.
Stoicism.
Stoicism is correct. 10 points. Next, what pagan philosophy believed that the real world is the world of ideals, and the material world is a shadow of reality? Green.
Epicureanism.
No. Minus 10. In the world of shadows. Shadow is what we see in the real world.
Platonism?
Purple.
Platonism.
Yes, Platonism. Next, what pagan philosophy believed that one must face all that happens with self-control? Because you can't control what happens to you, you should have self-control over your emotions. That's Stoicism again. What pagan philosophy believed that happiness comes from the absence of pain and the enjoyment of pleasure? Blue.
Epicureanism.
Correct. In the synagogue service, what came first? What was the first thing they did in the synagogue service? What did they recite? Expression of what they believed that was so different than everybody else. Time's up. The Shema. What was the name of Herod the Great's son who executed John the Baptist? Yellow.
Herod Agrippa.
No. Close, but not a match. Answer is Herod Antipas. Give me 2 out of the 3 offices that existed in the early church, or 2 of the 3 positions that were held in the early church. Give me 2 out of the 3. Yellow.
Bishop and priest.
No. There were no priests because we're all priests. Bishop, you could say, overseer, but he also was called something else. You could have said elder, deacon, and deaconess. All right, who was the Idumean who brought the Roman Pompey in to resolve the issue between the 2 Hasmonean sons fighting over who should rule in Israel? Who was the Idumean that brought in Pompey to settle the dispute? He was a father to Herod, but you wouldn't know it by his name. because his name means not a father or against the father, Antipater. Next, in what town was the Messiah born? Blue.
Bethlehem.
Correct. From what empire did both those who sought to depose Herod and his brother Phaziel and those who sought to find the one born king of the Jews come? From what empire did both those who sought to depose Herod and his brother Phaziel and those who sought to find the one born king of the Jews? Purple.
Babylon.
I said what empire? No, not Babylon, no. Minus 10. Yellow?
Idumea.
No. That's where Herod's family came from. Blue?
Assyria.
No. It's the Parthian Empire. Do you not recall the Parthian Empire? Those travelers seeking the young Messiah probably were transported by what means? Blue.
Of course.
Yay! It would be more accurate to state that these astrologers or astronomers were not kings, but what? Blue.
Kingmakers.
Correct. In what kind of structure did these men find the young Messiah? Blue.
A building.
Or what kind of
A
building?
house.
Yes. Next, these men brought gifts to the Messiah of gold, frankincense, and purple.
No.
Right. What does frankincense symbolize concerning the Messiah? His deity, because frankincense symbolizes prayer. What does gold symbolize concerning the Messiah? Purple.
Like royalty.
Correct. And what does myrrh symbolize concerning Messiah? His humanity, because that's what they wrapped bodies in when they died. Joseph and Mary probably made use of these gifts as they very shortly had to journey to what country? Where did they journey from Bethlehem? Blue.
Galilee.
No. Purple.
Egypt.
Egypt, correct. Which of Herod the Great's sons ruled over Galilee and was the one before whom Jesus stood during his 3 trials? Yellow.
Herod Antipas.
Correct. When many zealots fled Jerusalem, to what wilderness fortress did they escape? Amelia, you may win this game just by not answering. You want to venture a guess here anywhere? You've not heard of Masada? How many missionary journeys did the Apostle Paul take? How many missionary journeys? Green.
3.
Correct. On what day of the week did early Christians meet? Yellow.
Sunday.
Yes. What ordinance consisting of the Agape feast was the central feature of the early church meeting? What ordinance was the central feature of the early church meeting, which included the Agape feast? That was the Lord's Supper or the Lord's table. What ordinance was performed in order to proclaim that a person was declaring his or her commitment to follow Jesus? What did they do to show that they were following Jesus? Green.
Baptism.
Correct. A reason for the spread of Christianity, according to secular historians, was that because Christians believed in the immortality of the soul, They were unafraid of what? Blue.
Yeah.
Correct. What do we know about the number of spiritual leaders or elders in each church? It was to be a multiplicity. It was supposed to be a plurality, not just one. All right, there's only about 6 minutes left. I think that it would be a good idea for you to look over your notes. Apparently, you've not looked over them since you first wrote them down. So I dare say that you have not been explaining your notes to anybody. Otherwise, you would know something more that was in them. So we're having a test tomorrow over all of this material. Some of you will have a lot, well, all of you, it seems like, will have a lot to try to learn in the next day. So let's get started at it now.